Mr. Patrick C. Kondo, CEO, Seeker Technologies of USA. Welcome onto the stage, Mr. Abhay Tandon, Digital Innovation Officer, TVS. Rajesh Mirjankar, Managing Director of Kia.ai. Ryan Adams, Managing Partner, Raha Beach Ventures from UAE. And to moderate this panel, I'd like to invite Shri Bibhu Mishra, Director, TGLEF. Shri Bibhu Mishra is driven by a strong passion for utilizing technology and entrepreneurship to develop groundbreaking solutions for global issues and construct impactful projects. He's led projects including Our Planet, Junior Achievement India, ICICI Rural Self-Employment Training Institutes, and ICICI Rural Initiative Digital Villages. Please join me in welcoming the panelists as well as the moderator. It will take a couple of minutes for the boards to be changed. Meanwhile, we request all our audience to please settle down and take your seats as the next panel is all set to begin. I'd like to thank the audience for your patience and being a wonderful audience in the first place. Right, with that, it's over to the moderator, to Mr. Bibhu Mishra.
Hello. Hello Bangalore. So, from the world of policy, we are moving to the world of imagination, which is AI, metaverse, and emerging tech. And we have amazing panelists from all over the world joining us today. I'll start with introducing Patrick S. Kondo. Pat is the CEO and founder of Seeker Technologies, a company that is helping to redefine search by empowering people to make informed decisions on what they consume, share, and trust online. He has more than 30 years of experience in search technology. Pat's expertise includes founding 6 tech companies, and 2 of them went public on NASDAQ and provided advanced search capabilities to the defense and intelligence communities. Welcome back. Now, our esteemed panelist, Mr. Abhay Tandon. Welcome, Abhay. Abhay is the Digital Innovations Officer at TVS Motor Company. In the past, he has led innovation in India for 3 Fortune 100 companies, Lowe's, Targets, and AB InBev. Abhay is an angel investor as well as co-founder and GP at 321 Capital Investment portfolio of 30-plus startups, member of industry bodies such as NASSCOM, Deep Tech Club, NASSCOM COE for AI and IoT. Welcome, Abhay. We also have Rajesh, MD of Kia.ai. Welcome, Rajesh. Rajesh Mirjankar is the Managing Director and CEO of Kia.ai. Prior to taking the dual role, Rajesh was the CEO since 2010. As the president, he worked and looked after the UK and Europe operations of the company, spearheaded the company's growth and visibility in the region. He has very strong consumer relationship skills, a collaborative management style. He has over 24 years of experience and is dedicated to technology with a unique blend of business competence in equal measure. Welcome, Rajesh. And last but not the least, we have Ryan, Managing Partner of Raha Beach Ventures. Welcome, Ryan. Ryan is a founder, investor, and senior technology executive who excels at defining the technology vision, strategy, and execution roadmap to develop and bring innovative offerings to market and position companies for accelerated commercial success. He is the managing partner at Raha Beach Ventures as Abu Dhabi-based startup studio committed to working with entrepreneurs, subject matter experts, and corporate innovation initiatives to build impactful projects and companies. He is also the founder of Oryx Labs, an Abu Dhabi-based cybersecurity software company. Welcome, Ryan. So, and I am deeply honored to moderate this amazing panel from all over the world. Pat, I would like to start with you today. As the CEO of Seeker Technology, could you please provide us with certain use cases, such as reviewing of news articles that showcase how you are actually leveraging AI to create an innovative approach to verify online information coming from all kinds of sources like news, social media, and all. So over to you, Pat.
Hello, everybody. Yes, Seeker, about 5 years ago, we began looking at the problem of how to automatically detect the presence of false and misleading information that has been flooding, whether it's through news, social media, search results, a variety of different places. And so we are being built an AI platform that using machine learning and pattern recognition, we applied a variety of different principles and essentially created a neural network that as an article appears, a podcast appears, a video appears, we can separate out signals that might detect the presence of something that could be inauthentic. And use cases are we analyze news coming in from 30,000 sources, we analyze all the podcasts, we take a look at videos, and we pull things out that are very relevant to not only the user community that might use it, but also to advertisers who are extremely fearful of presenting their brand against a piece of content that may be false or may have even worse built-in biases that could affect their products or their services or the reputation of their company. And so we license these to publishers, we license it to governments, but we also realize that one of the key ingredients here is that young people need to be aware of this kind of information that's coming in. People that may consume everything on a smartphone, may get sources from, some are verified, some are not. So the idea was, how could we bring this idea down to the youth market? And we focused really on looking for people around the world that were respected and that were not political and that also had interests in vertical markets where this is really relevant. And one of the markets that is the environment, and people in India are very conscious of it, but around the world, people are getting even more conscious of it. So how do we bring that down to the youth market? How do we bring that to people in a way that engages them, but also educates them? And so we partnered, my company did, and created a joint venture with an explorer, an adventurer called Bear Grylls, who's one of the more famous people here in India. He took the Prime Minister Modi, I think, up into the Himalaya mountains at one point, and he's one of the more famous people around the world that's not political. And his whole point of view was, he teaches people survival skills, physical survival skills. How about mental? How about digital survival skills? So we created a program that we've been bringing around the world, showing different countries and recruiting people to be part of it. And I thought we would play a little bit of the video here that's very different than anything that we've talked about already. So maybe it'll wake up some of the people in the back of the room, but why don't we go ahead and try it?
I'm sure all the young people are going to be surprised. So can we have the video, please?
No, not that one. That's not the one.
New report has found that climate change-related misinformation has skyrocketed on Twitter since Elon Musk's takeover of the social media platform.
The rate of warming, according to the data, is much slower than the models used by the IPCC.
Instead of trying to get people to believe something different, one of the tactics now is just to flood the social media, flood the airwaves with confusing elements, just so that people don't know who to believe.
There are more human slaves in the world today than ever before in the history of mankind.
As we approach the 2024 election, big tech companies are actually rolling back critical safeguards against misinformation on social media.
It doesn't tell you where it's got information from. It presents it all as fact.
We know that OpenAI uses machines and humans to monitor content. What could they do, Pat?
Well, without transparency, there's no trust.
Imagine you have a house with a cracked foundation, you can't build a skyscraper on it, and that's what ChatGPT is all about.
The beginning of July was the hottest week on record on this planet. Around the world, a series of extreme weather events have intensified concerns about runaway climate change.
Priyanka Chopra, welcome to the Ranveer Show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. First of all, very, very kind. And second of all, I don't think that's true.
When I talk to children and parents, then the number one question parents ask me is social media hurting my children? These platforms have been designed by some of the best product designers in the world, and they're designed to bring and reel our kids in.
As content comes in, we're able to identify the presence of these biases.
So much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you see the magic of AI now. So, Rajesh, I would like to turn to you. AI is at a boom right now. We all see it's with ChatGPT and everything happening globally around that. You have been a long-term player in the AI market. With that in mind, what do you think are the 3 takeaways that AI startups need to remember when it comes to navigating common challenges in the space, like difficulty in raising capital, navigating regulations, and all? So
first of all, thank you for this opportunity, Meti Startup Hub. And Namaskara, Bengaluru. I'm a Kannadiga, born in Hubli, so it is as close as I can get to home, and this is what I'll call home for a lifetime. So very glad to be here. To get to your question, we've looked at use of AI in the forms of, let's say, in its early stage, where we looked at artificial intelligence being used for regulatory purposes in terms of scanning, SDN searches in anti-money laundering systems, and then anti-fraud systems, etc. So when we look at how we deployed artificial intelligence and went about it, my advice to startups from that perspective would be, number one, to ensure that you have a solution for a problem, and the fact that you're not going around with a technical solution like artificial intelligence and then looking for a problem to solve. It's a cliche, but I think it's the core aspect to fundraising. Your value proposition has to be absolutely clear of what you're proposing, what is the problem you're solving, and you will then see that it's not difficult to raise funds. Importantly, it's also about the fact that when you look to demystify the logic, a lot of startups would say that this is what I hold dear, it's under patent, so I'll not talk much about it, and it's not going to help. If knowledge and black boxes can open doors for opportunity, literacy can open floodgates of opportunities. So it's very important to make sure that you are able to highlight very clearly what is the differential value proposition you have. The next part is with regards to when you approach fundraising, looking at how you've adapted that solution for the regulations of that country or the market that you're addressing. Because if you're on the wrong side of regulation, like for example, people who are into, let's say, collecting data as startups today, will see change in the way DPDP, or the Data Privacy and Data Protection Act, is going to look at things. So it's not just about collecting data, but how you treat that, whether you have consent. And those aspects need to be inculcated in the very design of the business model. And then when you look at the important aspect of being able to look at ethical changes, make sure that you're using artificial intelligence where it is perceived to be ethically right. You cannot use artificial intelligence where people would think that it is ethically wrong in that jurisdiction. So these, what I would say, are the 3 core things that you need to address. But a 4th one I'll sneak in here is to say about the right timing of fundraising. That when you raise funds, make sure that your bootstrapping is enough to make sure you have a minimum viable product to then go to an investor and seek funds for what they see value in. Because if you seek funds a little earlier, you might end up losing control of the company too early in the game, where you might end up being like, I remember the person earlier mentioned about acqui-hire. You could almost become a glorified employee.
Thanks. I think these are really, really valuable inputs for the startups who are present here and, of course, watching us online. Ryan, I would turn to you now. And given the distinct economic landscape of the UAE and Gulf region, how do you see the integration of AI and metaverse technologies impacting innovation and sustainable economic growth, not just within the startups, but within a country as well?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, and thank you again for the invitation to be here in this beautiful, vibrant country. Really appreciate it. The concept of AI in the UAE is actually quite interesting. I think we're one of the first countries to actually have a Ministry of Artificial Intelligence in the country, and we actually have a university dedicated to artificial intelligence as well. The UAE made international news just a few months ago with its release under the Advanced Technology Research Council of its Falcon LLM model. This model at the time actually surpassed the other open source or freely available models. And it was licensed in such a way that not just academia, but startups themselves could benefit by leveraging this model in their day-to-day startups into delivering a unique value proposition to their users. So AI is embraced not only from the government standpoint, from the academic standpoint, and then through the collaboration with UAE government, with the, for example, Abu Dhabi Department of Economic Development, the Competitive Office of Abu Dhabi. They're actually implementing patent support, research support, so that if you create intellectual property within the country, they will provide up to, I believe, 90% of reimbursement for not only developing your product or idea, but actually protecting it. So we're seeing a lot of new startups in this space. We're seeing a lot of interest, especially as an investor. We're getting more and more people reaching out to us quite often. Almost daily, there's a new approach or a new startup that can leverage AI in some novel way. But we're seeing also this ecosystem support to help them really not only get off the ground, from the idea stage, but to grow, to scale. And it's a really exciting time that we live in.
Thank you, Ryan. That's really interesting and insightful. Abhay, I would like to turn to you, and I would like to ask you that your role as the Digital Innovation Officer at TVS undoubtedly given you a unique vantage point on the intersection of emerging technologies and global business. Could you please share a pivotal moment or experience from your personal journey that ignited your passion for fostering innovation within the startup ecosystem?
Hello. Thank you so much. That's a very interesting question. Takes me back. I see a lot of people in the right sitting at the back, right? They're all students, and I think the first time I had the epiphany of sorts, right, where I felt that I should get into innovation, was when I was doing my engineering. I was a student and I was studying biotechnology, and I was working under 3 US postdocs. And we were researching on human genetics and certain other application of medicinal biology. But the plants that we extracted, these medicinal components, were from the tribal forests in the Eastern Ghats. And these were not commercialized yet. And basis their say-so, we researched that, and we won, of course, a lot of national level awards for that. And we were able to find medicinal values to that. And that really got me my mind ticking. And I realized that time didn't matter to me. I would spend the whole day and night at the lab, because back then, RTR and all these equipment did not have cold storage. So, you couldn't just go back home expecting it will stay fresh and, next morning you could run the rest of the experiments, right? So you really stayed back. I literally had a mattress put in the lab. I could sleep and wake up at 4 a.m. I would time it and run the experiment. So that was the first moment. And I think the second moment was when I decided, after working for 3 global Fortune 30 companies, I realized that I needed to work for an Indian organization, and that's when I joined TVS about 18 months back. But the precursor to that was, we developed a very interesting, innovative solution in a lot of cold countries like North America, Europe, etc., you have thermal insulation panels. And in our own lab at Lowe's Innovation Labs, we created a thermal insulation panel which utilized rice straws as a substrate and a mycelium strain. These rice straws were actually burnt in Punjab and Haryana, which caused a lot of pollution. So we used that, grew a particular strain of mycelium on top of that, cold compressed, and made thermal insulation panels. The best part was, this was more than 10x more efficient than what is commercially available in North America and Europe, and costed more than or less than 1/20th of the price points that they were available in. So it was a made in India product which is impacting millions of people. And I think that's where I realized that, I've worked enough for a lot of international companies which are headquartered in US and Europe. It's time to work for a company which is headquartered in India but has presence in 100 odd countries outside. So, yeah.
That's really interesting, and that took me back to my days. I started my career with JK Tires and General Motors, and as I listen to manufacturing companies, that becomes really exciting to me. Pat, I would like to come back to you and would like to ask you that Seeker is a company is leveraging AI for ethical and responsible representation of any information on the web. So how do you see ethical AI development as a concept influencing the development of technology sector, and what steps can startups take to ensure that AI integration is both responsible and conducive to sustainable growth?
There's lots of debates about AI. I'm sure all of you have seen them. Is it good? Is it evil? Does it take jobs away? Does it create jobs? And I think what we hear is that, like any technology that comes along, you need to harness it, and you need to understand, a philosophy behind what you're going to do with it. I mean, you can go back in time thousands of years. Man's always harnessed some energy force bigger than itself, and it's always built responsibility into that. And I think it's the same thing with AI. It can be used in a lot of different ways. There's other ways that it can't be used or it doesn't make sense. But it's like anything. You can misuse products and that aren't, for what it wasn't intended. That's not the fault of the product. That's the fault of the person that uses it. And I think in the same case here with AI, there are philosophies that go into building these products. There are ethics that go into it. And all of those things are kind of part of the responsibility of the people and the corporations that build it. And then there have to be safeguards, like there always are. Everything today has some type of safeguard in it. And you have to trust that the combination of all those things will take it down the right path. One of the things I don't agree with is over-regulation by the government, because I think what that does is it starts to stifle innovation. So I think there's a fine line between what you can build and how you can build it and how you deploy it, and what a government may want or choose to regulate. So that's always, I think, the struggle in when new technologies are introduced. Is there's a tendency to to try to put a rule around it or regulate it, and I think that those exist today. They just need to be conformed to as opposed to recreated.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. And there are a lot of debates going on about responsible and ethical use of AI all over the globe. Rajesh, I would like to turn to you and would like to ask you that if you could delve deep into the role of AI-powered automation and enhancing efficiency and productivity for startups, and how this enhanced efficiency allows startups working in the emerging technology state to tap into the international markets.
So when we look at the aspect of using AI itself, it does provide a huge amount of operational efficiency with the ability to look at the minuteness of large volumes of data. So from that perspective of being able to get the right pulse on trends, etc., AI is the way to go for startups. Importantly, I would say that when you look at artificial intelligence tools, algorithms, data structures, etc., there are a lot of those now on open source as well. So it ensures that startups can use a lot of open source to get going with the adoption of AI rather than use expensive tools. And that's a good way of utilizing bootstrap money before they get into the stage of fundraising. But importantly, when you look at expansion and global diversification and expansion, there are key elements that AI will render One is about the aspect of hyper-personalization. With AI, you're able to get good insights into the utilization of systems, utilization of what consumers access, utilization of how your customers perceive the goods that you are selling or the services you're providing. And those insights are very crucial to be able to refine and adapt the product suitably for different markets. When you look at international expansion, localization is a very critical factor. It's a critical success factor that will ensure that whether you are going to be there for long or is it just a whiff and then disappear. So in that way, to be able to not spend more capital, it is necessary that firms look at re-architecting their systems in a way where you have, like I said earlier, a minimum viable product that is suitable for that location, and then go on adapting AI in a way where you are able to bring in the additions of new modules, which then can adapt in an agile way to sell this product, let's say, in different locations globally. The aspect of artificial intelligence also is to look at the scalability. You know, one part is about how you look at getting growth, but once you get there, it is being able to address that growth effectively. And that is where artificial intelligence serves hugely in its ability to process large volumes of data and being able to adapt more efficient structures to achieve results. And scalability is one key deliverable of AI that I think is crucial for startups to expand globally. And lastly, I think the adaptation for compliance and risk mitigation is very crucial when you look at global expansion, because it is something that is imperative that when you look at expansion, you are looking at compliance to be able to address the market, to monetize the offering. So these, I would think, are the core advantages of artificial intelligence that help you drive the product and take it globally.
Yeah, thank you. And these are really, really valuable insights. So localization is the word when you are expanding globally. Ryan, I would like to ask you that we always hear a lot about inspiration behind why startup founders do what they do. But we would like to hear from you that being on the other side of the table as an investor, what inspired you to work in the VC industry? As there are a number of budding investors in the Indian ecosystem, as well as they would look at you for some key piece of advice, and that's something that you would like to give to someone who wants to become a VC.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I didn't start in the financial side of things. In fact, I started on the operator side. I've been very fortunate in being able to create, scale, and exit now 2 startups. And at the end of the acquisition for my last startup, I took a bit of a break. In fact, I went to a country, and I meditated, I did yoga, I did boxing, and I really took the time to reflect. Why do I get out of bed in the morning? Beyond my family, beyond my friends, but what makes me tick? And the idea is that for me, I enjoy being around a small table with a bunch of very impassioned people trying to solve a tough problem, right? You don't have the backing of a large corporate player. You just have that table, your laptops, and a dream. For us, for me, this realization of helping people build their dreams was why I got into the financial side of things. How can we take the lessons that we've learned, myself and my partners, and share those lessons, share that pain with brand new startup founders to enable them to be more effective, to be more efficient in building their companies and building impactful solutions that change the lives of not just them, but perhaps their clients. So when we work with startup investors today, we choose founders that tackle problems that have a high sense of urgency, a high frequency. These are the problems that people are facing every day, and that problem to them is very, very important. So working in areas of future of work, etc. For us in VC, I think if you are interested in not only learning, but being involved in new emerging technology, if you are interested in working with founders, working with people who are passionate about what they're doing day in and day out, VC is a great industry to be in. I think we've all worked in environments where you're surrounded by colleagues who don't necessarily want to be there. I can tell you each and every day I go into work, everyone that I work with wants to be there because they're pursuing something special. They're pursuing their dream. And to be a part of that is beyond rewarding.
That's really interesting, Ryan. And I mean, we all would like to have more conversation about you on that. Abhay, I have a very interesting question for you now. So, how do your personal views align with the potential of AI? We have heard from all the panelists about the AI and how it's almost taking over the world. So how your personal views align with the potential of AI, the metaverse, and other emerging technologies to contribute and strengthening the global economy, and how do you envision their impact on the startup landscape?
It's a very broad question, right? So I'll probably try and divide that into 2 or 3 parts, right? The first one is, we are talking about AI a lot today, and I think it's potentially because of generative AI becoming a buzzword over the last few months, right, or probably an year, right? And that is why in the masses, everyone talks about it because there are too many B2C applications generating a lot of voice-based data, a lot of visual, audio data, whatever, right, which is being created, or textual data that's being created, and people are utilizing that a lot more now. But AI has been around for more than a decade and a half now, right, in different forms and factors. In fact, NLP, NLG was the precursor to what we see as generative AI today, right? So it's been there, it's been creating an impact, and people have utilized AI for a lot of efficiency play already. I personally see in all the sectors that I've worked in, retail, mobility, and manufacturing, etc., I've seen that across the value chain of the organizations, you can talk about a lot of emerging technologies, but the central base is always AI, on top of which a lot of these other technologies are then integrated, right? So it's been there. That's one. Second thing is the question about moving from artificial narrow intelligence. I remember speaking about this about 5-6 years back, and someone questioned me, you refer to AI as ANI, and I was like, yeah, it's ANI today, and it's eventually going to move to an AGI, and there's a lot of myths around what AGI is going to look like, right? Forget about ASI. So there again, with all these questions coming in, you know, we heard from Pat talk about Seeker, right, and how they're talking about ethical AI today, and that's the need of the hour as well. So these technologies are going to solve for a lot of problems, provided we know what they're going to solve for and how they're going to solve for it, and how do we ensure that we do not allow biases to creep in, for example, or a lot of unethical practices to creep in. We did an experiment about 5 years back where our computer vision algo was automatically suggesting, it was self-learning algorithm, and it was suggesting that, you know, a left-hander potentially has a higher probability of stealing than a right-hander. And we were like, oh my God, this is getting crazy now, right? Because now you're getting, the algo is automatically learning these things, and you need to make sure that they are bias-free, right? So these are the things that we also need to take care of when it comes to emerging technologies such as AI. Now, when it comes to other technologies such as blockchain, Web3, quantum, and so on and so forth, right? Metaverses, each of these technologies has very specific applications and use cases and solves some major pain points. However, let's not look at these technologies as a generic, all-rounder kind of technology where they can be applied to anything and everything. So you have to be very, very cautious about what you use it for, and it will solve for a major chunk of problems today.
Yeah, I'm 100% sure that we have to use the AI and all the emerging technologies in the right way. Pat, I would like to turn to you and would like to ask you that you have been at the forefront of the development of search engine technology since the 1980s. So what are the major challenges that present-day startups will generally encounter when they integrate new technologies like AI into their concepts? And what strategies do you think would be effective in overcoming those hurdles when they are integrating new technologies with their systems?
Well, I think that, you know, having started 6 companies myself and probably have funded another half a dozen, the thing that I've looked at after all these years is really what kind of mentorship these startups have. Who do they follow? Who do they listen to? Because oftentimes you can have a brilliant idea, you can be extremely smart, but there are other aspects to getting a business off the ground. There's the financing aspect. There's getting a customer. There's being in sales. There's being in marketing. There's all sorts of things that not any one individual can be good at, all of these things. So the key, I think, is to have somebody that you can rely on that's done some of these things, that can help you through some of the aspects of being a startup and growing along the way. Because when people invest in you, they start to pay attention to you, and they start to look at where you invest the money. And I think the more help you can have, the more people you surround yourself with that can say, hey, don't go down that path right now, or take a look at this alternative. That's going to help everybody that wants to build a business, that wants to start something. I think that's one of the most important things. They always say people are really what makes, a startup. That's what makes a business. And in this case, I think it's not just the people in the company, but it's who they surround themselves with as well.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Rajesh, maybe I would like to turn to you and ask that the AI-powered automation in enhancing efficiency and productivity for startups, a lot of startups are looking at doing that. How does this enhanced efficiency allow startups working in the emerging technology space to kind of be more efficient, be more price effective when they are kind of getting into a completely new market? So what suggestions, what ideas do you like to kind of give them?
I think when we look at getting AI into new markets, it's necessary to have the ability to adapt. Like I said, the cost of adaptation can be pretty high. So when we look at the use of AI, there is a need for not just looking at AI as a technology, but also looking at the key aspects of how you would look at project management per se. Because artificial intelligence in itself doesn't solve all the problems by merely a control system loop of self-improvement. It is what you start with the bare basics to make sure you got it right. And that is where you need to set clear milestones, make sure that you've captured all the burst of requirements properly, like an agile model to be used is ideal, and ensure that you've really worked out what you want to achieve out of the first MVP that you want to roll out. The core aspect there in terms of reaching out to other markets is in terms of regulatory adaptation, and those need to be looked at from a perspective of the base design itself. And which is where you look at making sure that the system that you develop is modular in nature, that you're able to add modules as and when required. Importantly, when you look at adapting to change, there are certain surprises that you get in markets, and like the one I mentioned earlier, like data privacy, similarly you have certain countries that may be having laws against the use of AI, like for example the furor that we've seen with generative AI and how countries suddenly came up very soon, quick to react, probably one of the fastest reactions to any regulatory change to say, no, we've got to stop that. We've got to really wonder why would this happen? And those motivations of saying those changes can really affect a startup who has gone in with that product, assuming that they are the early birds and they would then drive huge change. So when you look at that aspect, it is necessary to change the model to make sure that you put across the value proposition. Like I said earlier, literacy is very important. Put that forward to say, this is what would be the difference. Make sure you're not ruffling any feathers, and then look at an iterative development. Because capital is the most expensive aspect for a startup. And I think it is the rarest commodity as well when you bootstrap your own funds and raise, and move on. So it's necessary to make sure that you have an iterative development, to make sure that incremental successes are what drive your plan to either raise funds or to then put in more money of your own to look at achieving better results. So global expansion is a great aspect to have, but the right sort of plan behind it is very crucial to drive success.
Thank you. And these are really, really interesting insights about capital, and then how do you go about expanding in the global market and how to be more price and capital efficient. Ryan, I would like to ask you from your vantage point as a VC investor with Raha Beach Ventures, what measures can government and private sector entities take to create a favorable environment for startup financing? Maybe that allows for AI and other new technologies, companies to thrive not only in UAE but overall in the Gulf region?
Sure, absolutely. I happen to be a part of a collaboration committee in Abu Dhabi where our main focus is enabling SMEs. It's identifying the pain points and working with the government to overcome them. An example pain point that exists there, but I think many other places, is first and foremost the registration of businesses. In order to foster innovation, in order to foster a thriving ecosystem of startups, they need to be established first and foremost. That process needs to be straightforward. Once you've established the company, the next thing is building up a bank account. Establishing a bank account in the States is an entirely different process than establishing a bank account in the UAE, and I'm sure India is just the same way. When you begin to invite foreign companies to join the UAE or any other company, you have to make sure that your regulations locally are well advertised and easy to navigate. Otherwise, before you can even talk about funding, you're going to face bottlenecks or hurdles that to some may be too challenging to overcome. And I think once you've established not only the company, you have banking, creating a regulative framework that enables angel investors to contribute, that inspires venture capital firms to not only engage but to invest into pre-seed or seed-level startups. This is critical. And I think when you involve the government, I think there needs to be support in terms of government-backed grants. If you're building companies, if you're innovating on their territory, there should be some level of incentive or some sort of involvement in fostering this growth. And I think in the UAE and in Saudi especially, you're seeing a lot of this type of thought actually take action. It's a really exciting time to be in this space.
And like as we are looking at the global environment and how startups could thrive in the global environment, these suggestions would be really, really valuable. Abhay, maybe from the perspective of more established players like TVS in India, and of course, like with the growing influence of emerging technologies all over the world, how do you perceive the role of the established players, for example, TVS, could be in supporting new talents, encouraging new startups, and galvanizing the whole startup ecosystem?
Thank you so much, Vibhu. So before I get into that, I just wanted to address one point that Rajesh mentioned, right, which was iterative development and not to ruffle feathers. I think for larger organizations, contrary to what startups need to do, we need to ruffle a few feathers. I think we need to get out of that comfort zone, ruffle a few feathers, because that is where disruptive innovation will really happen, right? Because if you're always playing safe, you are not going to disrupt what is happening for the last few decades, specifically so in automotive, right? So my agenda has always been to ruffle a few feathers, which gets people out of their comfort zone and then go for the big ones, right? The more disruptive ones. Now, in terms of how larger organizations do this, I can give you a few examples of how TVS has been doing it for a decade now, right? Of course, we've been investing in a lot of startups. We have a bunch of in our portfolio across the globe today. Not specific to a region, in multiple countries that we have invested in startups where we think that there's a strong potential. We have acquired a lot of startups. We have even sponsored a lot of contingents. For example, the Indian contingent of startups which went to Viva Tech in Paris, we sponsored that. The same thing in multiple World Economic Forum and other environments, right? That Indian contingents have gone. We have invested in that. We had tie-ups with the likes of NASSCOMs to CII. In fact, our chairman emeritus is on the board of directors of RBI and was the ex-president of CII as well, right? So there's been always an interest via various channels to invest into innovation, be it startups, be it academia, or be it other institutions which are fostering the spirit of innovation both internally and externally. So we've been continuously doing that. I think that is the need of the hour, where you contribute, but I think remove those barriers in terms of adoption. Once you invest in them, it doesn't stop there. The major aspect is, can you really provide them scale and the resources that you need? So a lot of our investments and acquisitions are primarily relying on the fact that can we provide additional resources to these harbingers of innovation to really get it at that scale. A lot of proof of concept, proofs of values that we do in partnership with startups provides them scale across multiple continents. We have presence in 80 plus countries. So we don't say, let's do a small proof of concept in India. Let's get you to Latin, let's get you to Middle East, let's get you to Africa, and so on and so forth, right? So that's where large organizations can really contribute.
All the startups listening to, you know where to go for funding now. Yeah, so maybe one question to all of you, and you all can kind of share your valuable inputs on that. What are the 5 important qualities that every startup needs to thrive in a global economy and completely dynamic global economy? Maybe you could give some 5 inputs and 5 qualities that every startup or every entrepreneur should have for that.
Sure, absolutely. I think the first consideration is the unique value proposition. Are you actually solving a gap in the market, or are you creating a new opportunity? It's very often that I talk to startup founders, and they'll tell me that we don't actually have competitors. We're the first to market, we're the first with this novel idea, and then I'll ask them, well, have you just searched in the UAE for competitors, or have you searched in the region? Have you searched across Europe or across the States? And what we'll find is that people aren't actually doing enough research. So that attention to detail and that curiosity to see, yes, I have this idea, but is anyone else doing it? And how can we do it better? The next one is team product fit. Why are you uniquely capable in solving this challenge? What in your background gives you that competitive advantage, or what in your team's background, what do you provide in terms of unique perspective that enables you to challenge this? I then ask you to think about why now? Was there some sort of regulation change or some sort of shift in the market that enabled this new concept, this new product to gain traction? I also think about scalability. Is this something that's only tackling a problem that exists within your town, your state, your country, or is this something that can focus on a global scale? I think that's 5.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing. So maybe Rajesh, you could go next.
So if I were to look at the 5 attributes of a startup that I would look for, is the first one would be the organization structure. Because when you put up a startup, it's all good news when you say the founders have come together and created a wow factor. But I think it's very important to understand the differentiation in roles of each person. You cannot have all the founders doing the same thing. You cannot say everybody will innovate. You cannot say everybody will go to market. There has to be distinct roles that people identify. And that is maybe a sacrifice by some who don't perceive an aspect of strength in a particular field. But it is something that has to be done. So a very important part is constituting the right team. The second part is, of course, like I said, the value proposition and differentiation. The third part would be clearly the adaptability, because startups will face challenges. And I've mentioned this thrice, so I won't again say capital. But I think the core challenges come from competition, the core challenges come from environment, the core challenges come from the ethos where you operate. And so adaptability is very important. The fourth aspect I would say, which is very important, is with regards to technology change. Sometimes startups can have an ego saying that, I have invented something that is unique, so I won't change this technology. And I've seen a lot of failed startups that have stuck to that feeling of, I've done something, which is a miracle, which is a boon to mankind. And then it's just vanished because technology change is something that will drive them out. And the last one I would say is making sure that every offering that you have has a user-centric design thinking. If you are not user-centric, if you're not customer-centric, then no offering of yours is something that is going to last long. It will probably be something that goes to a stage of fundraising and PR in the news. But when you look at longevity, I think customer centricity is the key.
these are really, really exciting 5 suggestions that all the startups could take from here. Abhay, I would like to turn to you.
I think a lot of them have already been covered, right? So I probably add maybe a few more. One I think is that every entrepreneur should be focused on first principles and second order thinking. First principles will allow you to really look at the basics, right? Because if you really want to disrupt something, you can't just talk about incremental innovation, right? You really need to think about the basics and solve for a real value problem. I mean, a problem which can really, really solve, and create a major value proposition, right? So that's that. Second is second order thinking. Second order thinking allows you to really think ahead of what is your immediate step and basically how that really impacts, what are the other macroeconomic factors and how that you are catering or looking at those factors and then responding to that much better than your competitors are, or solving for problems much ahead of its time, right? And that is important. Third, I would say, is perseverance. The journey is not easy. There could be so many different challenges and you have to be perseverant, right? Specifically when it comes to startups working with corporates, it's not easy sometimes to work with corporates or enterprises, right? And when you have to go through that journey, it's important that you stick on for a period of time, be perseverant about it and continue to solve that problem. I think those are certain additional points that I thought that, Rajesh and Ryan had already covered most of them. So those I wanted to add in.
Yeah, these are not only the lessons for the entrepreneurs, but these are also life lessons. We also have to kind of have those qualities to kind of survive and thrive in the completely dynamic global environment. Pat, the same question for you.
Yes. So one of the things that they don't ever teach you is how do you deal with a large competitor that suddenly looms in your space when you start to build your product and you take a look around and you say, how am I going to really enter that market and deal with somebody that's already there? And having had to deal with that in the search space for about 20 years, I've come up with some ideas on how one can do that. And you have to really pay attention to the market and to the audience that you want to serve, but you also have to be very clever about how you get your product in front of them. And one of the things that when we started this, and I showed you that first video, which talked about all the technology and things that we're doing, that's pretty straightforward. But how do we get that, into the youth market? How do we distribute that around the world? And so, as I had said in the beginning, we had partnered with Bear Grylls, and we've created an innovative way of, bringing this kind of a concept across the youth market, and we're marketing it in just about every country to try to get the engagement and the education in it. And I think is there one more video that they have to show?
So all the young people, please watch out for the Bear Grylls message and mission for you. Can we have the mission seeker video, please?
Adventure. It's the most natural thing in the world. This is about helping young people to find their own adventure.
That could be dinner. Out here, it's the wild that's in charge.
Meet 14-year-old me. I knew I wasn't cut out for this. Not exactly the best start to my career.
Okay, so Bear Grylls' Young Adventurer Movie 1, Endangered. It's going to be epic, team. Here we go. The journey begins. Are we ready? the storylines in these movies is about trying to do all we can to protect the planet. It's about young kids together.
We're all set.
On the adventure of a lifetime.
Monkey! 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 Knock it off, Bear. You're scaring her. I'm scaring her?
Movie 1 is called Endangered, and it's Bear's first mission. He's dropped into the jungles of Borneo and Sumatra, where he finds himself in a battle against deforestation and species extinction.
Can't give up!
We all have a duty of care, you know, we all share the same planet, and that together, if we can help each other, we can actually make the world a better place. We're really telling kids loud and clear that you can be the change. You can be that leader of the future and that positive force for good.
Kids can be heroes too.
It's about kids making a difference, and I love that.
I'm Bear Grylls, and this is Mission Seeker. Mission Seeker is all about the small acts that inspire big change, and we want you to be part of it. Every month, I'll be issuing a new challenge. What you do to meet it is up to you. But Mission Seeker and my ambassadors are here to give you some ideas. Search, discover, then get out there and do it. But show us. Share your journey online. Get ready for the adventure of a lifetime. So what are you waiting for? Your mission starts here.
Thank you, and that's so exciting for all the young people. All of us would like to take up this challenge from Bear Grylls. Thank you, Pat. And with this, I would like to thank Rajesh. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. Thank you, Abhay. Thank you so much. Pat and Ryan, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. I would hand it over to you now. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Bibhu Mishra. And the film, of course, with that, it ended on a rather exciting, adventurous note. May we hear it for the panel, and I would like to invite Sri Bibhu Mishra himself to give tokens of gratitude to all our panelists. Mementos. First to Patrick C. Kondo, CEO, Seeker Technologies, USA. After Patrick, to Mr. Abhay Tandon, Digital Innovation Officer, TVS. Next to Mr. Rajesh Mirjankar, MD, Kia.ai. And to Mr. Ryan Adams next, Managing Partner, Raha Beach Ventures, UAE. Thank you indeed for giving many takeaways to startups in the audience. It's now time for us to invite onto the stage panelists of the next session, which is about digital innovation for One India.